All right, good evening or afternoon or morning, depending on wherever you are. Welcome to the Continuous Testing Meetup. Today we have two great speakers, and let me introduce them to you. But before that, I would like to thank our sponsors, Sauce Labs and Trendic, for being there for us, for giving us the infrastructure to host these Zoom calls, and for helping us to promote the event, and also for being there for us and helping us to send swag to the speakers every now and then. So thank you for that. Today, we have two talks. We have Paloma Oliveira. She's a software engineer here at Sauce Labs, and actually I work with her in the same team, and she has done this talk, and I saw it in a kind of in a private exhibition. It was a great talk, and that's why I insisted that she could join us and share this super interesting talk about open source. So we're going to start with her, and after Paloma we're going to have Antonella, and she will get her proper introduction after the talk. So let's move on and let's hear what Paloma will tell us. And thank you for being here, Paloma.
Thank you for the invitation. So we're a very intimate small group today, so feel free to show yourselves or not, and to interrupt me anytime you want. I'm trying to revamp this presentation, and I will share with you something. This is one of my main topics of research nowadays. And yeah. And what I will share with you is some thoughts about open source and what's going on with that thing that we call open source today. Just 1 second. Oh, no. Cool. So what I will share with you, it's my thoughts about this reflection of the zeitgeist, because I truly believe that open source, it's not, damn it.
What do you want to do exactly, Paloma?
I wanted to see my notes to steal, and I was putting like a full.
You have to click on the button next to present, like this arrow pointing downwards. Yeah. Click on it.
Okay.
Like on the Google Slides.
Presenter view.
Presenter view.
Huh. Cool. Orale. So now you see my full screen presentation.
Yeah, and then you can actually scroll down to the lower left, and then you will see 3 dots popping up, and then you can actually maximize the screen if you want.
It's not maximized for you?
Well, we see the browser, but if you scroll down to the lower left, like you move your pointer.
Yeah.
Lower left, so the other left. Yeah, then you can click on the 3 dots, and you can click on enter full screen.
Huh.
And there you go.
Damn it, but it's not open. So now you do not see full screen? No worries.
That also works. It's fine.
That also works? I'm so sorry. Okay. Cool. Okay. So the thing about the reflecting about open source, it's something hard to manage because I understand that open source is not just one thing. It can be seen through many lenses, and what I would try to do in a very resumed time is try to condense all my reflections upon the good, the bad, and the ugly about this thing that we generally call open source. And I will start with this phrase that I repeated a lot. It came up from a talk with a good friend, Denise Alves, a good artist, where she talks about the revolution nowadays is a dialogue and the commitment with the other. And I like a lot to sit this phrase and this conversation I had with Denise, because I understand that especially nowadays in this dystopian polarized world, this so simple thing, this basic things that is the commitment with the other, it's something that is indeed very revolutionary. And my goal here is to talk about what is this thing that could be and have this power to be a very revolutionary system or methodology, and what we are using with this. And so this is how I planned. I have a kind of 7 minutes to talk about history, concepts, 7 minutes to understand what it is, actually how it works, and 7 minutes talking about the intersectionalities and what are the costs of it today. And then maybe having some time for us to chat. And to be clear and for full disclosure, of course, my opinion and my understanding of this thing that I call open source come from my background, and what I come from, it's from an art space and basically doing art in hacker spaces and advocating for open source, giving workshops and talking about open source software philosophy and the use of it, or so everything that is surrounding this empowerment idea behind the open source as open the black box, or open this thing that it's opaque, but then through the power of seeing this thing, I have the power to understand how it works, modify, and even, I don't know, creating new things that are used for me and not depending on the industry. And this is where I come from, and this is why I mostly talk about ideology and not so much of the technical part. The technical part came for me way after that, but like 11 years ago, I was already doing it and just playing a playful way and more talking about the power of it. Now that you know your interlocutor, let me give you a little bit of historical understanding of what it is and how did it went from libre to business, which was what we mostly see today. So how did it all start? Open source history starts basically with people define the status quo, being revolutionary. Contextually, so think about it, it all started in the 80s. Our history context says that many people were living not under a democratic process. They were becoming democratic process. They're living dictatorships, especially like in Latin America, which is where I come from. And here in Europe and United States, the Cold War was ending. So we had this quest, this thirsty for freedom and for a different mindset to happen. And of course, it was the big race of capitalism and consume. And open source embedded it all. You cannot separate things. It was all happening in the same time. And if you want to mark, in '83, this is one of the biggest mark. This person called Richard Stallman, he launched what he called the free software movement, which was mainly embedded in social and moral philosophy. And he pioneered something that will be very important, we will see in a moment, that says copyleft. Open source, this name came a little bit after. This was about the 90s. And it was embedded with a slightly different philosophy. based, and it all based not much on the morality of the thing, but in the practical benefits of how can we win more if we collaborate together. And this all became this philosophy that grew way beyond software, became a philosophy for hardware, for design, for data, for governance, for science. And it changed, in my understanding, it changed the power structure of the things and how we are applying this philosophy to life. And this is where the centralized power system based on, we had this very centralized, right? We have this person on the top, this pyramid, and then the open source come and say, if we collaborate, we do not have this power that is linear or here. We have a sharing and collaboration thing based on remix and not authorship. And let's go back to license, because this is a very important point. What is copyleft? When this person, Stallman, he said, he declared copyleft, and I like the word declared, which I will talk to that about in a moment too. He did something very clever. He guaranteed that the existence of this idea was, he guaranteed actually the existence of this idea of libre into a crack of the law and said, well, let's do something that. And to talk about open source, we touch many bases, right? But mostly we're talking about license, because this is the cleverness of what Stallman did. We allowed people to use, to modify, and distribute the creation. This is copyleft. But to understand that, we need to understand copyright. Before that, what had is that by law, and that's from 1800, like a really old law. When you create something, you have the legal right to it. This law grants it depends on each country, but basically it grants the creator of an original work the exclusive right to use and distribute the thing. And software is considered a creative work. And the copyright exists as soon as the thing is created. I create, automatically is mine. So what Stallman did when he created GNU license was define the law by saying, well, you know what, if this is mine, I want to give others and make this other legal rights to copy, modify, and distribute this as well. I don't want this to be mine. I want to preview that and say, oh, it can be yours as well. This is how important this copyleft is. Super slight difference in law, but the same thing, but it works. And so the purpose of stating a license is to give permission who wants to use the code, this permission in advance, right? It is super complex. There's many, everyone can set your own. There's many ones that you can already use because it is a bit complicated, especially to mix and match. But the bottom line is you have a creator who owns the thingy and give birth to this thingy. And then this creator can patent or not the thing and can also give some or a lot superpowers in advance for users to sell or not, mix and match or not, and distribute or not. Understand? Sort of like this. Cool. So this is a lot. This is all about a changing in the way we are thinking things and this change of power structure. So we were just tired, right? We're back to the 90s there. We were just tired of people telling us what to do, to shovel the things and not having the choices to make these opinionated things. And the open source came to give this empowerment movement and give you the right to choose whether the license is just mine or is the other, for example. And make us active users instead of just consuming it. I can also modify it. But with power also come lots of responsibilities. And the simple change that is the law, being able to modify this license, has been seen a lot in a tsunami of changes that these authors that I like, I have my, yeah, I have something that I agree or not, but I do like how they define in a simple way. This Jeremy and Henry, they defined as the new power, is a book they wrote. And it is basically an invitation to a debate about the flow of how the power is shifting, but how does this directly affect in our lives? One example of old power is when just a few have the power to decide. And the new is when a lot of have the power to decide. But nothing is separated, right? And this is why intersectionality matters. And I'm quoting an author called Kimberly Crenshaw that talks about intersectionality, that says that things are never that simple as we see. The things are all very interconnected. I think this was the 90s. It was also the giving birth of the internet and the mobile devices. And the pervasive systems, not they didn't exist, but now they were in the hand, in your pocket, on your cell phone, for example. And I mentioned the book because this black box, this opaque thing, such as a centralization, is not always actually bad. It's not that the idea of open and sharing came to save the world and now everything is wonderful. It means that there's a shift, but there's always a but. And for example, now, pandemic, contemporary times, how good it is to have a very centralized, reliable source of information that can take really good and fast actions upon it. And for another very successful example of now from the, what we call new power of is education. How important it is not to be centralized and how to be decentralized. And I do like this example a lot because it's, so education is apolitics, right? It's everyone should have the right to have this information. And in this example is an interview with the creator of Khan Academy that tells the story of Sultana, that is a woman living under Taliban regime, and she was forbidden to go to school, but her brother gave her a computer with internet. Do that thing. And with just this tool, this only tool, and the internet, and the power of have something that it's not centralized. She's self-taught English and self-taught all the curriculum enough to have a scholarship to go to an American university. And now she's basically helping Nobel Prizes to do science. It was a long process. She was helped by the New York Times. Someone bought her her story and helped her with the visa and to make this change. But it's basically with the power of the internet and 14,000 volunteers volunteering with Khan Academy to make it possible for this information to get to her without the need of a centralized or someone deciding whether she can or not access this information. Access information, therefore, should be a human right, right? This is the first thing we fight for it. But that it is a paradox. Not necessarily this can be something good. For example, when information becomes literally a weapon. And this is one of the examples that was it was the first weapon design, 3D design to be freely dispersed and shared in the internet. And in one day, one model had more than 100,000 downloads. There was just one. In 2 days. Today, I don't know how many there is anymore. That was 2012. And then it makes us think, when reviewing the situation of when sharing and having information is really good for the common. So if not all there is shareable is indeed not fair, nor ethical, nor important to have. History has many times proven that even with this beautiful philosophy that I truly believe on of the sharing and collaboration, we have lots of misogyny, oppression, and unethical things that has happened. But the model is there, and it's up to us what to do with this. And this is also always important to re-see history, rethink, reflect, and talk about it. This is why I super appreciate these opportunities to exchange this and talk to other people and reflect upon what's going on and what happened. And this is an example of what I consider a very unethical example of MakerBot. It was 2009. 3D printers were starting to happen, and the school kids on the block, the MakerBot peeps, they got this project called RepRap, which was a research project to make cheap, self-replicable 3D machines, and had already hundreds of contributors worldwide. And they said, yeah, we can make that get into the consumers. But then they made this code proprietary, and they took it off. All the community has contributed. It was a huge scandal, but at the end, the community felt betrayal, and it was a huge failure. And open source is today a very profitable business. I mean, billionaire business, really profitable. And what the question about what I call the paradox of the open source today is how can we create mechanisms to hold the ones involved to be held accountable, basically with ethics, but also what are the costs of having this billionaire model for a few? So let's see from the contributor point of view. Why should anyone get into open source? And this is the speech we often hear, right? Well, usually you learn a lot, especially if you're getting started with technology, and this is a good entrance door, and you improve your skills, you boost your career, you learn from experts, you exchange, sometimes you get recognition, you have a great networking. But let's see the open source anatomy. One could say that open source is just technical, but when you see the anatomy of an open source project, the technical part, it's like a small part. All the other parts, it's based on how collaboration among people basically happen. This is because I understand that open source is not a verb. It's more, can be a workflow, a philosophy, and an approach, but it's mostly about people. And this is where people spend most of the time. Think about strategy on which tools can you use, how is the infrastructure, who makes the changes, how to filter those changes, how to communicate, how to onboard people, how to have maintainers, how to have active maintainers, how to educate new users. It is a lot of work. And usually this is the cost that we do not see. And of course, someone has to keep this huge structure and his huge anatomy together, and to what I like to call ecosystem. And this ecosystem is basically, I do like a lot of Nadia Zegbal book, Working in Public, where she very simplistic share projects in 4 different ones, from bigger to smaller, just to say that no project is like another. But what she brings in the book that I think is super important is the very serious problem of burnout, especially of maintainers of those projects, which a few days ago, Sumara Hariharesvara, I think I said it nice, gave a talk in Octo Speaker Series about how what would open source look like if you were really healthy, and was talking about this huge cost that being not only a maintainer, but how do you, it is a huge burnout, either because they live in places that you do not have a health system for everyone, or you're not paid to do the work, or so many other factors. And this is trying to be held accountable of and understand, trying to remediate and finding ways to improve this huge cost, especially for maintainer. There's this new player in Rome, which is the Open Source Program Office. It is this place that basically how to manage this healthy relationship between the company and the healthy relation and sustainable relationship with the projects. Not because companies are just nice, but because they also rely and depend so much. If this project stop existing, probably most of the software industry will just break. But it is a way to give it back also to the community and to help put some band or trying to find a way to remediate this huge cost for the maintenance of open source. And why actually? Because basically, and what the open source program office does is that we consume a lot of things and we need to understand how do we output and contribute it back. Oops, sensible smalls. And there's a lot of challenges on that, and I will skip them because I'm running out of time, and I will just skip for the last part to talk about the open source paradox. So we know that we saw the history, we saw some things that happen and we learn in between, and how a little things that it's made to understand what's going on and how can we improve upon this reflection we see. One is understanding, is seeing these methodologies, is being more organized, is creating better platforms, is having open source program office. But what's going on? Where do we go from here? And this is the questions that I would like to bring for us to discuss. How do we use this powerful and beautiful ideology and philosophy to bring social justice and really a better world for the commons, which the philosophy plays upon this collaboration? One thing that I like to use as a guidance just to start the discussion is using chaos metrics, because what I think is very interesting is although the metrics, they are focused on identifying which project is monetarily value and allow stakeholders to give very informed decisions. It also brings to the table of these metrics, for example, how much diversity the project has, not only about the contribution, but who are making this contribution and how they are happening, and how much this participation and this diversity is being not only on contributors, but in leaders and in governance models, for example. Oof. I kind of got lost in time, but I think I went over it. And I just want to share with you, this is my awesome team with whom I ask this and so many other questions on a daily basis. And I'm very proud to be part of a department that is thinking and bringing these questions to actually make a difference. And I thank you all very much for listening.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy you had the time and the patience to share this knowledge with us. And I am wondering if someone from the audience has any questions. Could be anything related to the talk or more in general about open source.
Sorry, I had one, but I couldn't find my keyboard. I put it on the side. I love the talk, and when you said what would happen to the software industry if open source projects like stop existing, I was wondering, do you know if there are any places where we could have metrics on that? I got really curious, like there are so many public libraries and stuff people use.
Not sure if I can find these metrics, but it's just, I don't see it. I see it, it's impossible. I don't, do you know, Diego, if you can actually see a metric? There's a lot of graphics around and many text around, but I don't know if there's a centralized place to see it.
No, not really. I think there is actually very common comic from this I forgot, XCDF, I don't know, I remember, I forget continuously the proper name, and it refers to projects that are vital for many top level components. And when you go and see like with a magnifier and you see the detail, okay, so this project is maintained by one single person, and not funding, and they just do it in their free time. So it's a bit sad and complicated to find that, because it's all hidden everywhere. So those things only are evident when something goes wrong, basically.
And we have a lot of examples of when it went wrong. And this is why it's like, oh, so it's also always this balance between something that's going good and then, oh, it breaks. Now, how do we do it? But it is sad that it is for the cost of so many burned out and people freaking out.
That is true. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Gonzalo. I wanted to ask, what would you think that it will be a kind of like the first step while starting a new open source project?
Very good question. So the thing is that for me, it's becoming very, very clear is that open source project is not open your code in a public repository. It is making sure that you are aware of this ecosystem. And by ecosystem, I mean, you need to make it communicate in a way that people will feel welcome. They will feel they have a place on the table to discuss, propose, and you will have enough time to give people attention. Otherwise, you don't need to commit to an open source project. You can leave it open, but not actually commit with the open source. But one good first step is making sure your project comply with the best practices. And there's a list for that. You can check up on Chaos and lots of open source guide. There's at least 3 things, which is README, a good license, and README license and a contributors guide, where you make it clear of your intentions, your roadmap, what you wish, and how can people take part of this. So this is the first step, license and a good README documentation, and then you follow from there.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Great. So just in the interest of time, I want to thank you for Paloma for being here again and taking the time to share with us this really cool talk. So let's move to the next one. Today we have Antonella, who is joining us from Barcelona. Actually, Paloma is also based here in Berlin, and Antonella is joining us from Barcelona. She is a QA engineer, and the interesting thing is that I think we met through Twitter. We actually never met in person, so potentially at some point when it's possible again to fly and do in-person meetups, we will probably have a drink over there at Barcelona. So I'm very happy to have her here, because I saw this talk, the Spanish language version of it, and I think it's super interesting, mostly because sometimes many people come to this meetup wondering what they can do to improve their careers, or sometimes people are looking for a change in their career, and I think this is the perfect talk for it. So without further ado, thank you again, Antonella, for being here. And I'm gonna stop my screen so you can share yours.
Thank you. Oh, wait, I can't. I'm having technical problems here. Desktop 1. No, sorry, I installed, I had to format my computer a week ago. No. And I don't have, okay, hold on. I'm checking how to give myself permission to share. Allow the apps. Why? Okay, yes. Sorry. I
It's
guess we
okay.
should have tested this. No, system preference. I think I'll have to look it up.
What issue are you having?
I'm trying to grant Zoom permission to share my screen, but I can't actually click on it. It's like grayed out. I'm
I
using a
think
Mac, if it helps.
probably you need to check the lower left, and there should be a lock, like and then maybe you can
Yes,
click on it and
yes, you're awesome.
thank you.
Yes, and where is it? Advanced? No. Yes. Ha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
I might have to pop out of the conversation and come back. No.
Because you need to restart soon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
we're gonna be here for we're gonna wait.
Okay,
All
I'll
good,
be right
all
back.
good. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. See you soon.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's have a moment and let's wait for Antonella. Something I was gonna say about her is that she's open for work. I think she's looking for a new position. So if you have any leads for her, you can also drop comments in the chat. So I was commenting that you're also open for work, Antonella. Now that you're back.
Not anymore,
Not
actually.
anymore? Oh, you see?
No, that was really quick. I can't share it. I don't know what's happening. I'm so sorry. I have the same issue.
Did you have that in Google Slides, and then you can send me the link and I can share my screen showing the presentation, and I can walk you through it if you want.
Okay. Wait, now it seems like it's working. Can we try one last time? Otherwise, I'll send it to
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for being so patient. Be right back.
Okay, that meant that she had to go away. Cool. Appreciate all of you for your patience and being here. So, okay, there was a question from Aurelien, but there, Antonella is here again. It works.
What do you see?
You're mute. We see an empty desktop, so I guess you.
Yes, that's the one you should see. That's great. Okay. All right. So I guess you'll see this now. You see the presentation, right?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And you see it in full screen?
Yes.
Perfect.
I mean, this is fine. Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna set a timer. I prepared a timer for myself. Okay. So yes, as Diego mentioned, I'm no longer open for work, but I guess we can talk about that some other time. Thank you all for coming to this presentation. As the title indicates, I used to be a translator and I changed careers. So a little bit about me. Through the slides, you might see some things that make me seem like super awesome, but I'm not. I'm just a human. I'm super passionate about languages. Right now, I'm not learning anything. Well, I'm a bit on and off with Dutch, but I used to learn French, German for a while, like Catalan when I moved here. I don't speak them perfectly, but I'm always happy to learn. I'm an explorer. That applies to life and testing as well. I love doing sketch notes. I have a Twitter and an Instagram dedicated for it. And I'm actually going to share a sketch note I did of Paloma's talk as well. I own a ukulele, doesn't necessarily mean I play it. And I am a fan of inner peace. So these are the stops we're going to have through the, oh, you're not seeing it in full screen, are you? Okay. So these are the stops we're going to do. First of all, we're going to, well, I'm going to talk a bit about my origins, and then we'll see how I landed in different places, which obstacles I've had, which skills from being a translator have helped me become a tester. And we'll talk about the lessons I've learned and the conclusions I reached. So I thought it was important to share, to share that I was really bad at math, and that's a bias I had for 5 years or so as a tester as well. I've always thought that because I was so bad at math in school, I probably wouldn't be able to learn how to code, or that I wasn't as smart because I was bad at math, stuff like that. I also had a gap year before starting college. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be like Tim Burton, and that didn't happen. So yeah. I started to become a legal translator. So my job was to translate official documents. I mean, I could translate, I still can. I can translate many things, but that was like my specialization. I also went to the USA as an au pair. I was like a nanny. After I came back home and graduated from university. Then I translated and taught English for a while. Then I went to Canada. That's my dark period, my dark ages. That's like a blur in my life. And then I went back to square one. So I was newly graduated, and I had, well, Salta it's not a small city, but it's not that big either. It has like a million people maybe, but we all know each other in certain circles. And there was work as a translator, but everything that I had to translate was like for yesterday. Whenever I asked, okay, when do you need this? They would all answer the same thing. Oh, we need it yesterday, but we've just found you, or we've just decided to hire someone. So everything I had to translate, I had to do during the weekend pretty much, because they needed it right now. And as well, the income was unstable. I wasn't very known. It's not like there's a lot to translate. There are lots of things about mining and yeah, mining, pretty much that. But I would have a really good month, and then the next month I wouldn't have anything to translate. So, and that's why I was teaching, and because I liked it. But yeah, it was very unstable, and I felt kind of lonely as well. So yeah, that's what got me into my first landing, let's call it that way. I had a friend. I was volunteering at an NGO back then, and I had a friend who was a recruiter at a company, and she told me she had seen an ad where they were looking for someone who spoke English fluently. And I asked her, like, okay, but what was the job about? And she said, well, I don't know. They were just looking for someone who spoke English. And so I ended up sending my CV. I probably sent it to other places too. And I got a call from this company. It was a software company from the States, but with offices in Salta, Argentina. And they had a construction software. I remember I went to the interview. I didn't understand anything they told me, I think. And when I left the interview, I wasn't sure if I had done a good job or not. I wasn't sure what the job was about. I was really confused. But half an hour after, or an hour after, they ended up calling me to tell me that I got the job. I was like, okay, great, thank you. And my mom asked me, like, okay, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know, not sure. So that was pretty strange. So this world was, it was a bid management software. So imagine you own a shopping mall project and you want to hire people to build it for you. You would send them the blueprint and people would send you back their quote, and you called the ones you were interested in working with. That's what the software was about. And I started working as a customer support agent. So this is my first impression of life back then. And I want to have a full disclaimer here. I don't feel like this anymore, but Antonella from the past did. I thought the developers were all geniuses. And whenever I heard them talk about, I don't know, many things, I thought they were all brilliant. And I remember thinking one thing, their English was really bad. Like they would say things like, I don't know. Well, some things that, yeah, that you wouldn't translate, I suppose. But still, I thought, well, they've hired me for my English, but I still don't understand my job. I don't understand the product. I don't understand anything in meetings. And I kept thinking to myself, what am I doing here? Why am I still here? I worked there for 2.5 years. I actually ended up being a team leader of the QA team. I always say I don't know how it happened. I guess I do know how it happened. But yeah, it was strange and great. And then I met my now husband, and he wanted to live in Barcelona because I met him here. And we decided to come. And I thought, well, although I've had a great experience, at first it was really hard for me. And I was wondering, would I even manage to get a job in tech in Europe? Maybe it's not the right thing. Maybe what I should be doing is teaching English again and translating. So I thought I was done with IT. But there was something in me that kept telling me, no, give it another chance, give it a try. And I'm gonna give a really cheesy quote here, but I felt like I really had to listen to my heart and my brain, because my brain also knew that one experience wasn't enough, and I should give it another go. So that's what I did. I've been living here for like 5 years, I think. Yeah, 5 or 6. And I was a consultant during my first 2 years, 2.5. And I think it was a great experience because I was able to work in different products and projects with different clients. I had like 3 clients and 1 internal project. And from now on, I'm going to refer to my clients as planets. So during my time as a consultant, I landed in some planets that were populated by dinosaurs. Other planets had like toxic gas in the atmosphere. There was also a planet that was in black and white, and everything was either black or white even. And I met really good people in all of my projects, but I just felt like none of those countries were, well, planets were the right place for me to grow. I'm going to make a gardening metaphor here, but you know, sometimes the pot planter is too small for the plant. And it's not like I felt I was big for the planets. I just felt like we didn't speak the same language. We weren't compatible, I suppose. So they were happy with me and I was happy with them to an extent. But I decided that if I wanted to grow more, I had to stop being a consultant and get a final client. And that's what I did. Now, before I'm not gonna go deep into that. I just stopped being a consultant and I started working somewhere else. But throughout all these years, I've had obstacles, lots of them. And I want to, refer to them as meteorites, whatever word or expression we want to. But the thing is, some of them were not external. Some of them I was carrying in my backpack with me at all times. The first one was me. I had a really low self-esteem. I still do, but I'm working on it in therapy, and it's been wonderful, and I'm like super happy about it. But I wasn't happy back then. I thought I was pretty much useless. And being in an environment where everybody was smarter as me, or where I perceived them as smarter as me, didn't help at all. I was also quite competitive. I've never liked winning, especially games. Like, I'm not the type of person who will get upset if I lose at an Uno game or something. But I was competitive with how I made progress, or how I don't know. In general, I felt competitive. I was always looking at what other people were doing. And I guess because I felt so small, I always had the need to be better than other people, which made me really unhappy, really. Also, I listened to stupid comments. Like, for instance, I had a coworker, a backend developer in the first company. And I remember telling him that I wanted to learn how to code. And he told me, "You want to learn coding?" and I still remember that until today. And I don't resent him, but I swear the day I finish my Java course, I'm going to send it to him, because it was just demotivating. It made me feel like, yeah, he thinks I'm stupid, and that's why I'm not able to learn. I don't know. I shouldn't have learned. I shouldn't have listened. Something apart from that didn't help was not asking for help. Like, when I would get stuck in a task, or when I found something to be difficult, sometimes I wouldn't ask for help. And I think it can save you time, but it can also help you bond with someone else. Sometimes when people help you, you make a friend. So I guess I was missing up on that. And I also thought that I could do everything, and that I had to do everything. And that's a lot of pressure on one person. And finally, I hadn't noticed that time is limited, that I didn't have all the time in the world to do everything I wanted, and to do everything I needed, and to do everything that made me happy. So I was always learning all the time something. And for instance, with the ukulele, I've always wanted to be able to play music, but I never dedicated time to learning. So how am I going to learn how to play if I don't dedicate it time? And I guess it applies to everything, really. Time, we have a day with 24 hours, from which we are supposed to be sleeping, I don't know, 8, and we work 8 hours, and we commute, whatever. But time is not infinite. Period. So not realizing that sooner was a bit of a problem for me. Now, because I wanted to link my skills as a translator to my to what I use as a tester, I've made a list. But first, I'm going to have some more. How am I time-wise, Diego?
Well, good. I mean,
Right.
I haven't been counting actually, but
I have
whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't worry.
Okay. So each planet in the work universe, I don't know if in our universe, but each planet in the work universe has their own language, their own industry jargon that they use. For instance, in my first job, I realized, like 6 months after, no, maybe less, that I didn't understand anybody, because they were using words and expressions of our product that I didn't know yet. Like they were talking about repros and I don't know, stuff like that. And it was really easy once you knew what they were talking about. So in order to communicate effectively with our clients, I was doing customer support, so I had to talk to clients. I needed to understand what the product was about. And I also needed to understand the business logic. And making a glossary of terms helped a lot. I did it in that company, and then I sent it to new people that started working there to help them out, and they loved it. And then I started doing one, making one in any company, in all of them really. Except for the last one, they already had one, but I was always updating it because I think yeah, it's a fact. If you're new to that world, you don't know what they're talking about. So why not write it down and make it easier for someone else? And that I learned as a translator because it's common to have glossaries. Detective skills are super important. I guess, well, if you're a tester, you know that. I remember I had well, it was like a joke in college that translators are not dictionaries with legs, because it was very common that whenever you met someone, they were like, oh my God, can you tell me what this song says? Or how do you say, I don't know, tumbleweed? And if you didn't know the translation back then, you felt, well, I felt really stupid. Like, how can I not know this? But if it's not part of your everyday vocabulary, and if you have never had to read about it in a different language, then why should you know? You don't know. So so yeah, that was a joke, that we're not dictionaries with feet. And that's why our teacher said that it was really important to learn how to do research and investigate, and that sometimes you have to do it really quickly, and you have to be able to differentiate really quickly good from bad information. Like well, Paloma, I remember you just mentioned the trustworthy source of information, and as a good detective, I guess we shouldn't spend hours researching on something when you can just find a true source and stick to it. And that helps as a tester too. The ability to adapt and learn constantly is something I guess all translators should have, because you don't know what you're going to translate. I had to translate emails for trial. I had to translate also I don't know, it was like a report of lithium transportation from Argentina to Chile. Yeah, everything I had to translate was very different from one another, all texts. And I think that as testers, we're exposed to the same thing. We don't know what product we're going to test next. We have no idea. Well, I mean, you can choose, but still, we don't know what we'll end up doing and working with. So being open to adapt quickly and learn quickly about a new field is super valuable. I had to translate, well, Spanish to English, English to Spanish. But as a tester, I've learned to translate developer user, user developer, because sometimes, especially at first, when I was working as a customer support agent, I remember the customers would call and complain or report the bug, and I had to, report it in Jira. And then the developer would explain to me what was the bug or why it wasn't a bug. But they would explain it in a way that was too complicated to be sent to the client. So I had to change the tone a bit, or the explanation, make it simple. So that ability to shuffle between different levels of linguistic complexities is really helpful as a tester. At least it has been for me. This one. The same teacher, no, not the same teacher, another one. She would always tell us to read the whole text before we started to translate. We had like assignments in a class or something, and you had like a, I don't know, a text that was like a page long, and they would always remind us to read it fully before translating it. And I was like too lazy to do it back then. But honestly, it helps, because if you read the whole thing, you can make a list of which words you don't know that you're going to look up, and then you organize how you're going to research it. And I think the same applies to testing. If you read requirements or a user story, if your reading comprehension is good, you can already find bugs or larvae of bugs. You can already find it. You can already spot potential problems. Now I'll open a parenthesis here. These are things that have always been defects in my life. As I grew up, I've always thought that these were things that were wrong with me, that these weren't virtues. But now, when I prepared this talk, like last year or something, I realized that they have been skills all along. They were never, they were never bad things. For instance, my curiosity is what has always guided me towards looking things up or reading about a topic, or I don't know. Yeah, if I can't remember a word when I'm in bed or along the day, I can't sleep. So I have to look it up. And I guess that helps me as a tester, because when someone tells you about a bug, or you can ask, okay, but what was it? Oh yeah, but what was causing it? And in that way you learn more about the product. I've also been really inquisitive. I was always asking questions. For example, I had to study law because I was a legal translator. And I had this same teacher for lots of my classes. And she was explaining to us the principle of lesser evil, which is when you do something bad because you're trying to prevent something worse from happening. For example, you break a window of a shop because you want to save the people inside who are caught in a fire. And I remember asking questions to the teacher, like, okay, but what if? Okay, but what if? And she was like, Antonella, come back from Earth. And everybody was laughing at me. But as a tester, that's priceless. We have to ask questions. And yeah, sometimes you come up with an edge case, but we know the user will do it eventually. And I mean, how is it possible that I thought these were bad things that I had? Also, I remember my mom had a notebook of, this is hashtag parent bullying. She had a notebook of stupid questions. And she would write down the questions I asked her. One of my questions was, what's the chemical composition of a cricket? I was like 6, I don't know. And I remember my mom wrote it down. And years after, I told her, I was like, Mom, I never wanted to know what was the chemical composition of a cricket. I wanted to know what made fireflies glow. I said cricket because I guess I didn't know how to say firefly, but that's what I wanted to know. So I guess being imaginative has helped me come up with good testing personas, great scenarios to test. So yeah, closing parentheses, but if you know someone who has all those skills, maybe they would be great testers too. Now, to the lessons, lots of lessons. I wanted to call them spatial lessons, but I wasn't sure if it was going to translate well. First of all, every industry is a planet. And I think we should remember that, so that we remember that it's okay if we don't know the lingo. It's okay if we don't understand the business logic. It's fine, we'll learn, but they're all different. Of course, they have similarities, but they're different planets. There's no such thing as a dumb person or a genius. I think they're all people who had different experiences in life and who had different opportunities. Some people got to learn something, some people learned something else. But now I know that it's not right to feel them or to call someone else them. Teamwork is key. I remember feeling lonely as a translator and that I wanted to work on a team. And now I know for sure that I'm a team player and teamwork is essential for software development and for lots of things in life. But without a team, you can't achieve it. I know that I know nothing. Yes. The more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know everything. But a friend of mine, Geert van der Listung, told me once that I should create a folder in my bookmarks and save everything I look up. And then from time to time, take a look. And I've done it. Well, I've been doing it for 2 years now. And it's amazing. Whenever I see what I've looked up, I'm like, what was I doing looking for this, I don't know, expression or this? It surprises me that I've learned that. And it's great. Also, I sketch note. And in that way, I keep a record of everything I learn. Whenever I see my feed of Instagram, well, my own section, I see like, oh my God, I've done a sketch note on this, on that. Like I can see all the things I've learned because it's a way of reviewing. And that has helped me feel better about myself and what I learn as well. Don't give up. Yes. Had I given up after my first experience, I wouldn't have realized that I adore being a tester. I love being a tester. So I think that if you or if you know someone else, I don't know, who feels that they are not good for something, perhaps it's the place that is not good for them. Maybe they should check other place out. So that's why I wrote travel. But yeah, maybe it's the company that's not good for them. Curiosity is a sensor. I test lots. I use my intuition for testing a lot, and I like to think as curiosity as my antenna, as if I'm an ant, and it's like a sensor that tells me, yes, you're in the right way. So yeah, I learned that being curious helps me. I also learned that keeping an open mind to learning is essential, because otherwise I would just feel like, oh my God, I don't know this, I don't know that. But if I'm open, I'm like, yes, I don't know it, but I want to learn. And it helps, and it gives, it's a good attitude to have as well. Advocating for yourself, that's something I learned, I guess, the hard way, but it took me a while to realize that not all companies exist for profit, I suppose. And if you need something and it's not aligned with what the company needs, maybe they won't give it to you. And so you need to ask, or you need to look for ways to learn what you want. And nobody's going to come offer you like, hey, do you want to go to a conference? I'll give you money if you want to go. I guess it works the other way around. If you want to go, then you ask. You say, yes, I've seen this conference, I want to go. Can the company pay for my ticket? Stuff like that. You're not alone. I thought I was alone, and fortunately I found the Ministry of Testing, and I was the ugly duckling that found the swan. And I think it's good to find people who are, like-minded. Find people within your area if you're feeling alone. Maybe you can find a mentor, a friend. Communities are good for people. And finally, asking questions is cool. That's something I'll never forget. And this last one is pretty much self-explanatory. People grow in different ways, and growth looks different. So I've stopped comparing myself with other people, and I've become a much happier person with myself. Now, in conclusion, I can say that after 5.5, 6 years in testing, I have realized that there is a conjunction between what I know and what I'm learning at the, right now, what you know and what you're learning right now, and what other people know and what they're learning. And when they all come together, there is magic. It's magic, innovation. That's what happens. So before, I used to introduce myself as a translator, and I would say, yeah, I'm a translator, but I test. And now I just say I'm a tester, and then if we talk about my background, I'll bring up that that I was a translator. But I'm not embarrassed anymore for not having a computer science degree, because that's what eventually will allow me, I guess, to come up with a solution for something, and maybe combine what I think with other people, and will innovate and find something for a user that's valuable. So the more diverse we are, I think the strongest we are. And it seems like I've grown a lot as a person, and that I've become more resilient and believing in myself. But the truth is, sometimes I feel really bad, and I keep telling myself, like, what am I doing here? I'm not fit for this anymore. And then I tell myself, oh yeah, but I haven't translated in years. Nobody's going to want me. I do have those voices in my head, and I try to, ignore them. But sorry, I heard a beep. But there's this TED talk I watched that has helped me focus on learning from a different perspective. He talks about staying in the learning zone, and he talks about different zones, like the expertise zone, which is when you're full in professional mode and you can't allow yourself to make mistakes and stuff like that, which of course is, not like that. Like, of course you can make mistakes, you're human. But he talks about the learning zone, and how in the learning zone, it's 100% okay to make mistakes. And that has allowed me to see my learning from a new angle. So yeah, I would like you to watch the talk if you're interested in it, because it has changed me. At least it changed my life. And I don't know if you're here because, like, if you came to listen to see me talking, or to listen to my talk, or if you're not, but this has made you wonder whether you should do a career switch, I guess you'll be wondering as well whether it's going to work out for you. So this is a quote that has kept me going many times when I doubted myself. And maybe it'll help too. It'll help you, keep going. We don't know the future, but if you put everything you have into something, there are good chances that you're going to succeed. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonella. That was really, really, really nice. And I honestly reflect on many things that you express, because even if in my case, I have studied computer science for many years and done a master's and things like that, still I see that skills that are not technical are the most valuable ones in this industry. And I don't consider myself a person who is extremely talented on the technical side. I believe my strength is mostly for understanding my environment and understanding who am I talking to talk the proper language. What you were saying, when a developer explains why this is a bug or not with language that nobody understands, like, you have to see who is listening to you, and when they are able to understand complex things through you, that for many people that means the world. And a diversity of skills in your background is way more important than sometimes the code. So I'm extremely happy that you were able to be here and share this with us. And I wonder if someone has a question, a comment, anything you would like to share.
I want to comment.
Paloma, so I wanted to
Not
say.
only that I love ukulele, but how much I relate with so many things on your talk, and how important it is to hear someone. And I find that often that it's my heroes, like the ones I inspire most, it's often the ones that just share the simple experience of I've been there, and it's so important. But I also love the quote on Roxette. I was cracking up like, brilliant. And I do have a question that I'm also a career changer, and I think let me formulate the question in my head. How do you find more useful, or which researchers to create your own roadmap for this learning path? I know it's different for everyone, and I love your slide, but how did you find yourself in this quest? What will help you to stay in this? Because it can be a rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess I have tried to learn of what I needed at a certain time. For example, the first time I had to do API testing was because we had this system and we had to make bills. We had to mock them somehow, and you needed to get a response, and that's how you made the invoice. So they introduced me to API testing, and they were like, okay, this is Swagger. This is what you're gonna use to test this. And then I remember not liking it, but I was into it. And one of my colleagues saying, okay, you can actually use Postman. I'm going to teach you. You're gonna love it. So I just went with the flow with that. As well as actually that's how I met Diego in a way. He's taught me a bit as well. And in my last job, I started to learn Java because that's the automation well, that's the language they were using for automation. I would have chosen another language, but I chose that one. But in the end, I decided to stick to it. I thought, okay, well, as a good first language, so be it. I just let life guide me, I suppose. I see the situation, I assess it. Will this help me? Yes. Okay, then keep going. Yeah, very intuitive. Oh, also I do check job listings sometimes. Well, I had to. I was looking for a job, like Diego said, not anymore. But I do. Well, I take a look at job listings and I see what they're asking for, and then I say, okay, maybe I need to learn this because all of them are asking for that. Stuff like that.
Yeah, good. That's a really good tip. Yeah, so I don't know if we have any more questions. Otherwise, we can start wrapping up the session for today. Maybe Paloma and Antonella and Oksana, we can stay in the call, so we can have our feedback session quickly. But to everyone else who was here today, thank you for joining the meetup, and thank you, Oksana, and thank you, Paloma. Big thank you, and big thank you also to Antonella as well. And I really appreciate you had the time and you spent a few minutes with us. Thank you.
Thank you.